Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk a little bit about places and truth in place names. I guess facts in place names, and going into a little bit about what we did yesterday with truth and facts, and something like a place name. I'm wearing a shirt, Cuca Lake. That's a place. It's in the Finger Lakes up in New York State, and beautiful country up there. My parents are from there. Looking back at a map of the Erie Canal, I was at a museum exhibit in Austin over the weekend, and it was about the expansion of the American West in religious terms. And a huge part of that was the building of the Erie Canal, bringing things from the interior out to where they could be reaching the eastern seaboard ports. There was a map from 1817, and it showed the planned course of the Erie Canal. And I noticed on this map at the bottom of it, there was a place name of Crooked Lake. That is an old name of Cuca Lake. And you can see the lake is shaped like a Y shape, basically. It's a glacier lake, like all the Finger Lakes are. So, used to be called Crooked Lake, 1817. It's right there on the map. That's a fact. Also, the town of Rochester is on that map. That was a pretty big town. And all through really the Industrial Revolution and then the 20th century, it was big. That's where my dad worked. He worked at Eastman Kodak. Xerox was headquartered there as well. Just a lot of invention, a lot of discovery, a lot of corporate stuff was done in Rochester. And it was on one of the Great Lakes. It is right on the Erie Canal. But this map, 1817, doesn't have it named Rochester. It has it named Rochesterville. 2 words, Rochesterville. Another Finger Lake there. I know I'm getting kind of in the weeds here, but one lake to the east of Cuca Lake is Seneca Lake. And there's a town at the top of that lake called Geneva, like in Switzerland. Except for this map had it spelled without the V, like Genea. It wasn't, I don't know if it was a typo or what, but the point is, the facts were that that map had Rochesterville and Crooked Lake and Genea. And those were the place names of those places. That's what people called them. That's what the mapmaker thought they were called. You could take that as fact. You could look at any map up until a few months ago of the Gulf of Mexico and see that it was called the Gulf of Mexico. Now you might look at a map and see that it's called the Gulf of America. And what's the true name? Okay, the factual name right now, well, according to Google Maps, would be the Gulf of America. And according to the United States government, it's the Gulf of America. But what's the true name? What's the truth, right? I don't know. The fact is, if you want to get down to it, it is the Gulf of America as far as the U.S. government is concerned. That's the fact. The truth is, to me, that it's the Gulf of Mexico. And you can use something like this in conversation with people. I think a lot of people would still call it Gulf of Mexico, even if they are Trumpers, unless they catch themselves and realize they're supposed to call it Gulf of America. I know my parents referred to it as the Gulf of America last time or two that I saw them, and they did it laughing, like knowing that I would think it was ridiculous, and I just kind of rolled my eyes at them. So this is a thing that's pushed. And what is the truth? I'm not sure what the truth is, but I know the fact is that it is called the Gulf of America. And the other fact is I'm not going to call it the Gulf of America. I'm going to call it the Gulf of Mexico. Which brings us in a roundabout way to the latest Ukraine mineral rights developments. The fact is that an agreement was signed between Ukraine and the U.S. for mineral rights. The truth is, this agreement seems kind of meaningless to me, just like the Oval Office blow up did with Zelensky. I remember I put some videos on here leading up to that, and I was saying I'll believe it when I see it. I don't believe, this is what I said back then, before Zelensky was even in the U.S. I said, there is no agreement. There are no terms worked out. Anything they sign at best would be an agreement to have a future agreement. And sure enough, there was the big staged blow up with Rubio sitting there looking down at his shoes. I don't know. It was so ridiculous. But there was never going to be an agreement. But this time, it looked like there would be an agreement. And so what do we have? We still don't have the real full details of what the agreement will be. One thing the experts say is the case is that this will be a long-term, like a decades-long process to extract minerals, to decide who gets what. Russia still controls a lot of this eastern slice of Ukraine, where a lot of the biggest concentration of these minerals are. They're not giving up that. So what Ukraine finally clued into is just, and I think this is what Zelensky tried to do last time when he was in the Oval Office, he was just here to go along with Trump, because he knows Trump is never about the actual facts, the actual details of what's being agreed. He is just about optics. He's just about saying, I made a deal, right? This is what he always does. This is what he did his first term. This is what he's doing now. This is why he can say China is calling him to strike up a deal about tariffs. And then China, a day or two later, said, no, we're not. We're not calling him. We're not discussing anything. I believe China. And what kind of universe I ever thought that would happen. And I did this his first term too. He would always contradict his readout, and his words would contradict what the Chinese official readout was. And I would always believe the Chinese readout over his. It's not that I believe China is some trustworthy entity at all. It's just no one on this planet is going to lie more than Donald Trump. So China is now, today, for the first time saying, you know what, we might discuss some terms about how to deal with some of these tariffs. We might have some discussions. But Trump said they had already been calling, like last week, and that just was not the case. So sticking to the facts, Ukraine and the U.S. have signed something related to future mineral production and mineral rights in Ukraine, which the U.S. would put up a big investment to develop these mineral rights. It sounds very colonial. It sounds very, Middle Eastern oil stuff that goes back into the 40s and 50s. With Britain and with the U.S. after Britain. It sounds sickening. It sounds nauseating. I'm glad Ukraine's doing it because Trump's not going to be in charge forever, and I think we could get back to some normalcy after Trump. But it's a good step, and it is keeping Putin on his toes. So that's a good thing. As far as trying to suss out who's on which side when you're dealing with people who are wise enough to keep politics out of it, you might try bringing up your possible vacation to the Gulf of Mexico and see if they correct you or not. See if they say Gulf of America. These are so stupid. This is all dumb, but it's kind of what we're reduced to now for trying to figure out where people stand that we don't know so well. Little tip-offs like that, I would say, to look for. But in the meantime, I think it was really cool finding this old map and seeing some place names that are just like I've been to so many times, and seeing how it was all laid out 108 years ago by this map maker up along the Erie Canal. Pretty cool stuff. And that's it for tonight. And we will talk to you all later.